This story was submitted by VUL Editing. I flip my hood over my head and stick my hands in my sweatshirt pockets. It's about 2 a.m. and my friends and I are walking to 7-Eleven to pick up some snacks. The roads are dimly lit and not many people are out. We pass by tweakers pretty often, but we are used to them. I mean, it's Seattle, the land of the homeless. My friend Dre makes a joke about us getting jumped, and I just laugh it off, even though it isn't that rare for people to get robbed around this area. We see the 7-Eleven across the street, so we jog over to it. We open up the door and walk past a group of college kids. I walk to the candy aisle and begin to reach for a Twix bar. That's when I notice someone is right behind me. He surprises me and I knock over a couple of candy bars. I bend over to pick them up and I see him just staring at me. He is about 5'5" and is so skinny his rag for a shirt looks like it's on a coat hanger, and he looks like he's about 35 years old. I'm bigger than most of the sophomores at my school, being 6'2" and 185 pounds. I stand up and put both candy bars back on the shelf. I turn around and ask him, "Can I help you?" He just keeps looking at me, and I just laugh and ask, "Are you trying to scare me?" He just continued to stare at me. Dre comes down the aisle, looking confused about the situation. He asks me, "Is everything okay?" And the weird guy turns and yells, "No!" Dre backs up a bit and starts to laugh because I begin making gestures behind the guy's back. I walk past the guy and over to Dre and tell him that we better leave. We walk up to the cash register and buy our things. I ask the employee, "Who is this guy?" The employee responds, "I have no clue. I thought he was with you guys, because when you guys jogged across the street, he was right behind you." This made me a little bit nervous, because I thought maybe he knew where I lived. I turn around and check to see where he is, but he's nowhere to be seen. "Must have left while we weren't looking," I tell Dre and the employee. After we finish checking out, the employee tells us good luck, and we walk out of the store. We decide to jog back, because we don't want this freak to know where I live. We jog by a bus station, and I notice a man in there. It's the same guy from the store. He looks up at me and yells the address of Dre's house. Dre looks over at me with wide eyes. I walk towards the man and tell him to leave us alone. That's when I notice he is reaching for something in his pocket. We don't want to know what it is, so we turn around and begin to sprint to Dre's house. Dre lives with his 29-year-old brother, who served as a Marine before all of this. We told Dre's brother everything, and he didn't seem scared at all. The only thing he said was, "Well, he isn't getting into this house without getting shot." As Dre and I stayed in the living room all night watching American Dad, while Dre's brother was sleeping, we heard footsteps from the front porch. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a steak knife, while Dre woke up his brother. I peeked through the blinds and saw the man standing at the door. He was shaking and looked angry. I noticed that he was holding something. A small blade was in his hand. Dre's brother came out of his room and was prepared, because in his right hand he was clutching a Kel-Tec PMR-30 handgun. Without even flinching, He walked up to the door, kicked it open, and pointed the gun at the man. He drops his weapon and begins to flee. Dre's brother and I chase him while Dre calls the police. He gets about halfway through the yard when I am able to snag him by the back of the shirt and pull him to the ground. Dre's brother runs over and kicks the man in the ribs. I hold him down for about 20 minutes until 2 squad cars show up and arrest him. One of the policemen pulled Dre's brother aside and told him about the man. Me and Dre walk back into the house while the police talk to Dre's brother. Later we find out the man was wanted for the murder of 3 other teenagers in Seattle. This story was submitted by JayVthee Monster. This happened a few years ago. I was a single mother at the time, stressed out and trying to get back to normal following the separation from my baby's father. I didn't have many friends and no time to go and do anything for fun, with college and work. That's when I met Henrich. He was my sister's friend's cousin. And it started out as a casual hello over social media, being that we lived halfway across the country from one another. He seemed nice, and eventually we became friends. And I thought that was it, that it was going to be something simple, until he started asking me to give him a chance at being my boyfriend. I made it clear that I was not interested in anything like that with him, and he dropped it. We stayed good friends and would talk often, send holiday and birthday presents to one another's P.O. boxes. The things he sent were usually more fancy than what I would send, and I would tell him that it wasn't necessary. But he would often brush it off and said that it was no big deal because he could easily afford it, being that he had a really good job. So I would politely say thank you. Things were fine for a while. We would have little arguments here and there, but we were friends and would share experiences and opinions with one another, just like normal friends. Henrich would occasionally bring up wanting to go out with me, and I would shut it down. Each time, he would react to it in a slightly more negative manner, but I'd usually tell him to not talk to me for a few days if he couldn't respect my answer. He'd quickly change his tune, and things would go back to normal. After a year of being friends, I met someone in my city, and we hit it off. I decided to go on a formal date with Quinn, and Henrich asked about it. I didn't feel like I had to explain it to him, but I did state that we were going to hang out later. He asked if Quinn and I were going on a date, and I confirmed that we were. Henrich threw a huge fit over it, and it got way out of control. He started yelling at me and asked why I didn't give him a chance first, and I told him I didn't see him romantically for the umpteenth time. That wasn't good enough, and he went on a huge rant about all the things he does for me, and the fact that he's the only one willing to be my child's real dad, even though she had a relationship with her biological dad and his new wife. This was getting weird, so I told him he was freaking me out, and not to talk to me. He started trying to contact me from any possible outlet. If I blocked him on social media, he would just make another profile and contact me again. I had to call my phone company and have his number blocked because he would literally call 30 times in an hour. My phone was blown up with threatening text messages, and he actually took it upon himself to threaten my friends when they wouldn't help him get in touch with me. I had to block him on about 10 different media outlets. I was looking for another job at the time, so I had to pick up my phone to answer calls from numbers that I didn't recognize, and one of those calls was him. I told him that threatening me and my friends was chicken shit, and I basically engaged in this argument and yelled at him. He spoke in a really angry voice, told me he knew where I lived, and that he was going to take time off work to drive to my apartment. He threatened to visit my family's home in the country, as well as paying Quinn a visit. I couldn't get a word in edgewise as he threatened everyone I knew, all the way down to the babysitter. And he finally tells me that he's going to make sure I'm dead before he leaves my house. Obviously, that was the last straw. I told him I was contacting the cops and never to contact me again. As soon as he heard that, he changed his tune yet again into deep regret and started begging to be friends again. I hung up and blocked the number and a new number he called from. It didn't stop him from messaging me from even more new profiles. He must have created a dozen of them. He said he was going to kill himself if I didn't take him back. By that point, I just wanted relief. I didn't care if the guy actually did kill himself, which makes me sound like an awful person. I felt so awful for putting everyone I care about at risk, so I didn't respond, and after a few months, I stopped receiving messages, letters, and phone calls. It's been 10 years, and it still bothers me. I don't know why I didn't call the police sooner. I guess I thought they wouldn't help. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. I'm sure a few of you noticed I haven't been here the past couple of days. I had to get some things taken care of in my private life, due to the fact that since I've been doing this, I haven't had time to get anything done except for work and videos. So I had to take a few days for myself and get things taken care of. But I'm back now, and I will also be streaming in a couple of hours some video gameplay off my PlayStation 4. Feel free to join me, that's over on Twitch. I'll have a link in the description. My Twitch name is YourMaker69. You can pretty much consider it a live Q&A as well, because you can chat with me live there. I will also be doing another Q&A as a 50,000 subscriber thank you. So any questions you might have for me that you'd like in that video, feel free to leave down below in the comments. Once again, thank you guys very much. We've reached 50,000 subscribers, and I plan on also having a long video come out as soon as I have the time to do it. So be looking forward for that. And until I see you again, just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.